maybe queen d2, rook a1, eventually creep towards the king side.
Yeah, and actually, it's kind of reminding me of a game that we casted earlier, Eric, with Duda playing with the black pieces, where we might see a lot of maneuvering. We have a really, really solid structure. The pawns from c7 up to e5, all the way down to g7. It's a really, really strong formation. But at the same time, you can't really do anything with it, right? You can't play f5 yet. You can't play d5. You don't want to take in the center. So the pawns look great, but they're probably not going to move for a while, which means we're going to see a lot of maneuvering.
I mentioned that generally white doesn't want to trade the dark squared bishops, but if you think in a few moves, black completes development. If black ever shifts that rook on a8 to d8, then white's looking for the right time to move that d pawn, because then the bishop on a7 will be loose.
Yeah, and actually, that's a great point because immediately, if white plays rook a d1, black plays rook a d8, you can grab the pawn in the middle of the board, d takes e5. If the bishop from a7 that's loose captures on e3, you can take back potentially with the pawn, right? F takes e3, hits the knight on f4. It's a perfect example of what you were highlighting.
I have to say, this kind of position probably favors both players, but white's certainly happy to have a position, all the pawns, all the pieces on the board. This isn't some sort of equal drive position. A lot can happen here. And one of the ideas for white is to play knight to f5. At the right moment, you see that queen on e8, you see your rook on e1. When you play knight f5, you're trying to induce bishop takes f5, e takes f5, because then all of a sudden there might be a pin on the e file that you can take advantage of.
That's right, and we see exactly that move played. Rook d8 played quickly. Because the knight's on f5, things are a little bit more loose than before, but I have to be looking at that move, d takes e5, that we were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, there's a bunch of pins. That move might have worked, but black was also preparing his own bishop takes f5 in certain lines,
Exactly.
hitting the queen on d2. So Maxime plays rook 81, and I think he's planning on playing either queen c2 or queen c1 next. Nihal plays bishop b8, getting out of that idea.
Yep, exactly. And things are starting to shift. You notice how there's not really any action on the queen side here. Players are moving the pieces towards the center, but there's also still a lot of potential on the king side. I look at that knight on f4, and it's always about removing the knight. The knight on f5 can't be removed that easily. Black would have to move the knight on g6 away.
We'll see that soon, and that's why he played d5. He sees if your king goes to h2 with that bishop on b8, maybe black plays c6 or d5, looking to get a discover attack on the king. When you play d5, now you can play king h2, and you're not worried about that bishop on b8 being a problem. So Maxime grabs the space, Nihal goes knight back, and I have to say, the last few moves to me indicate white is doing well. When black invests time to put a knight on f4, and you don't even have to spend g3 to kick it out, that
Yeah,
has to be a plus.
absolutely. Is removing itself from the great f4 square. Now, it probably would have happened anyway, king h2 and g3, but look at the quality of the pieces now. The bishop on b8. We don't even need to compare it to the bishop on e3. It's obvious. The bishop on b8 is trapped. That was also why Maxime pushed the pawn into the center with d5. Wanted to prevent maybe c6 and d5 from happening from Nihal to free that bishop. The knight on h5, pretty much trapped on the side of the board. Eric, the quality of the pieces here, it doesn't feel equal at all. A huge advantage here for Maxime, and he's not up any material.
Bishop on b8's a bad piece. I don't see how you correct that.
Yeah.
At some point, you're looking at the move c6 as black. You need to fight for space. You need to open things up. But when you play c6, d6 becomes a serious target. Not only that, when you push your pawn to c6, the b's getting sharp.
Oh, yeah. I
Where's
mean,
that knight on f4 going on? I can move my knight back to g3. If
mhm.
you ever take on g3, I do f takes g3, the knight on f4 is trapped. This is a critical position for Nihal because he's really lacking oxygen in the position.
Yeah, and we could see g3 was about to be played, and then as soon as the knight jumped in f4, it's actually g4. The knight on h5 is trapped no matter what. And the knight on f4 now took the only available square. g6 is a desperate move, but I love your suggestion. Just drop that knight back. It moves to g3. If it's taken, we take back, and 7. There's many moves to play, Eric, but right in front of us is just a free pawn. Bishop takes on f4.
It's more of a free pawn than you might expect because the bishop on b8 isn't in the game. I would be a little hesitant of giving up my dark squared bishop if black had a good dark squared bishop.
Right.
Black does not have a good dark squared bishop. He puts the bishop, admits, I probably don't have full compensation, but I best place my pieces on good squares now that you don't have a dark squared bishop. My bishop goes back to a7. Long term, it's going to put pressure on that diagonal, and it's up to MVL to figure out how can I contain that dark squared bishop and still keep pushing forward.
And at the end of the day, the bishop on a7 is finally active again. So Nihal, it actually seemed, Eric, that he was going to lose a pawn regardless. But in the end, it's kind of the best case scenario because yes, he was going to lose that, but the bishop on a7 is actually a very decent piece now. I would expect white to probably improve that light squared bishop, maybe bishop c2. You could also bring the knight on f3 into d4 just to block that diagonal that the dark squared bishop for Nihal is on. But we have a different game here, and I do think that Nihal is objectively going to be happier with his position now than it was before, because at some point it felt like none of his pieces could move.
Yeah, his position wasn't good before. This is an easier to play position, but I still think there's serious issues. The knight on g7 doesn't have a lot. When you see the move knight to d4, black's not in a position to really trade anything off. He's down an entire pawn here. I don't like the move bishop c2. I understand that maybe MVL is worried about Nihal eventually playing f5 and trying to blast things open. But counterintuitively, I actually thought he's up a pawn and he could actually afford some trades because that bishop on a7, what it means is in certain positions when black plays f5, white may have the e5 move. That bishop is not on b8. It's going to be very sharp. That probably favors Nihal because he knows you're down a pawn. He's going to embrace a sharp position. But I don't like the bishop going on c2 because there's so many lines where I'm worried about my d pawn hanging. Black is looking to support, play f6 to f5, blast things open. You see queen g8, why queen g8? When you play f5, you want that rook on f8, targeting the queen on f4.
Yep, and the queen on g8 still hits the d5 pawn, which is the main thing that gets weak. As soon as you play f5, if you play e takes f5, capturing from the center, the d pawn suddenly becomes loose. So there's a lot of ways that you can connect to those ideas. And of course, other than f5, there really isn't a big plan for Nihal. The knight on g7, you look, it's 100% trapped. I think that MVL is making almost all his moves against that one plan. But the question, Eric, is he actually preventing it?
No, I think MVL is actually going the wrong plan here. I still like his position, but I liked his knight on f3. I don't think he needed to put the knight to d4, king g2, right beside the f2 pawn. You don't need to worry about that. I like the knight on f3. Why the knight on f3 and the queen on f4? I can place my queen on h6. I thought MVL could have placed his queen on h6, put his knight on f3, and then look towards knight h4 or g5, some breaks. The knight on g7 is a poor piece. It can't harass the queen when it gets on h6. MVL here is playing some other moves, but you push those pawns forward. At some point, they could become weak. I think if I'm in MVL's shoes, I don't want this position with 2 minutes on the clock.
Right.
Because then the pressure is on you to convert, and you have to always watch out for the tactics. And there are going to be lots of tactics. It all surrounds whether or not black can play the f5 move. I don't want to have low time on the clock when f5 is eventually played.
And it's looking more and more likely because f5 also will open the g file potentially. And the queen on g8 is very, very well placed against the king on g2.
He has to start making progress here. MVL has not made progress, in my opinion, in the last 5 moves. The queen should be back on f4. The knight should be back on f3. Sure, his pieces look okay right now, but they're not pushing black at all. Nihal's getting away with the position with the queen on g8. He's not under any pressure. He's down a pawn, but he doesn't feel like he's down a pawn because white's not using that extra pawn to grab space.
Yep.
You need pawns to push forward and take away squares. Look at this, the knight on h5. It didn't have a square before. It was on g7 stuck. Now the h file is open. The bishop on d7
is beautiful.
Nihal is coming back in this game, and I'm really starting to like his position.
Yep.
MVL has not made progress for a long time.
No, if anybody's position is improving, it's Nihal's. The rook on e5, flexible to recapture on h5. He's probably at the point, Eric, where he's even considering queen takes on h5, queen trade while down a pawn. That's how good his position is, how much it's improved over the last couple moves. I still think that rook takes h5 is the right idea. I'm also wondering at what point is Maxime starting to get concerned? The bishops are just looking really scary. The h3 pawn is a huge target in the position. Yes, he can defend defensive.
E2. Don't even know if I want my king on h2 because, as you mentioned, that pawn is pinned. White needs to incorporate this bishop on c2 in the game. Even the knight on d4, it looks pretty there, but it's not helping defend. It's not going to e6. He's not converting. He's not putting Nihal under pressure. I think at the right moment, MVL is looking towards knight e6. Knight e6, shutting off that light squared bishop. Then you don't have to worry about h3. Then you get a passed pawn there if black takes and your bishop on c2 goes to b3. He's realized that b5-10 moves have not been good.
And you know what? This might have been a move born of desperation. Oh, this is how I block the bishop from attacking my h3 pawn. But it's great for him. It's worked out. It's one of the best moves in the position, and it's really hard to avoid capturing. So yes, you need to take, I think you can put on the g6 pawn. You're trying to...
Yes, if you weaken the light squares, that light squared bishop will become only stronger. I do want to play bishop b3. I want to play king g2, but I think first things first, why not defend the e6 pawn?
Yeah, bishop b3 certainly does that. Queen g4 as well. But, you know, these moves are a little bit slower. You have to watch out long range for your f2 pawn. h4.
You know what? This is impressive. I said bishop b3. MVL recognizes you're going to attack my pawn on h3 by placing your queen on h6. Now my rooks are set up properly. I'm going to attack you.
h4 looks incredibly strong. I mean, first glance, queen takes h4, loses. You can play rook to h3. And if pawn takes, I mean, just the move rook to g6 alone is really scary. Now, before you can do anything here, Eric, you have to get rid of that pin. So rook h3, exactly. You have to get rid of the queen, pressuring the king on h2. Now the threat is obvious. Pawn takes on g5. He's looking to trade.
Rook to g3 is an interesting move here because then you're ready to take on g5. Maybe Nihal plays queen g6. So rook g1 to g3, maybe bishop b3 first, but all of a sudden MVL has the initiative.
And he's playing really well at this point. All it took was that idea, knight e6. Once he played that, everything's wise. The only move to keep the h file closed, Eric, is pawn to g4. It's just a ridiculous move, but what else do you do?
You have to play queen g6. You can't give up a second pawn.
There you go. We're wondering whether he's going to take right away. You know, another move that's on my mind is Q, but he's got all the time in the world right now.
I really want to defend f2 because I never want this bishop on a7 to get into the game. We can't allow it to take on f2. Then it starts harassing the pieces. As long as that bishop, it's looking pretty on a7. But at the end of the day, black is down a pawn. White's queen, 2 rooks are all in the game. I see a deficit here that's going to be very hard to come back from.
Yeah, and one of the moves I was considering next was let's move the queen. I'm not sure where. Maybe queen d3, queen g4, and play f4. It's the only other move that we haven't really activated. And I tell you, the rook on e5 is the main piece I want to get rid of.
MVL saying, I have safety on the light squares. If you give me a check on g1, I play king e2. This is a sharp way of dealing with it. It might not be the most precise, but the players are low on time. And look at that. Rook check.
Oh, that's a huge move. That's a huge move. Rook g2, long range, the bishop from a7. We were saying you can't let it activate. Indirectly, it has. It's part of the position now. Rook g2.
You might have to play rook g3 here. Can you really afford to allow rook takes f2? I said we didn't want the bishop on a7 in the game. It's in the game now. MVL's missed this move. And if rook g3 is played, that forces an opposite bishop endgame potentially.
Yeah, and I think he might have to do it. Now, you could allow rook takes f2 without your queen there, but okay.
Rook H6. What a find. It keeps the queens on the board.
That's huge. I still think insane progress from Nihal. He's made a big comeback.
He's made a big comeback. His goal is to make sure White's queen never penetrates and coordinates with the e6 pawn to set up a mating net. That's not very easy to do with the queen on h6. Nihal could have played king e7. He's playing queen h5 check, asking. If you play f3, that's only strengthening the dark squares for Nihal. Then he'll play queen back to h6. He's is good, actually. That's just as, it's even better. It defends f6, and you're looking at that d4 square.
Oh, this is trouble. Now the queen is getting involved. Queen d4 is there. Even, I mean, queen g6 has to happen before white's making a threat. You're also hitting the e pawn.
There's no time here. Nihal can start checking on the back. Is MVL going for king walk, just like Anish?
Yep, and remember, this is going to be very effective on the light squares. That's the thing about opposite bishops. Great control of the dark squares for black, the opposite for white. He also has c4 and e7 check at some point to open the diagonal.
But there's no immediate threat yet for MVL, so maybe Nihal plays a move like 6. Doesn't work. There's queen. What kind of waiting move, what kind of stabilizing move can MVL play here?
He plays e7. I was wondering if, okay, queen g7 is the obvious follow-up, but also the move I love the move c5. Right now, it locks the bishop out.
C5, and
there's no queen takes f2.
How do you stop? Okay, so after d takes c5, I think what is the move? Is it queen f7 check and bishop e6? You can take pawns with check. All of a sudden, the tables have flipped. The question is, can MVL dodge the checks?
Okay, he found a way to trade. Takes on c5, but the two pawns connected, Eric.
It's even material, but it's, as you said, it's about the connected pawns. Can Nihal
But how is the time working out? Because MVL can flag this, and he most certainly will.
He's up 15 seconds. He's got split pawns. Nihal has no counterplay.
I think this could be a win, but Nihal, this is where he thrives, Eric. You literally cannot count him out after what we just saw.
He's down 13 seconds, but look at the way he's playing. Is he going to march down the board?
I wonder. He can also
can't go too far.
Yeah.
He can't allow that a-pawn to push.
King d5, he's not letting the king get around. Now with the pawn push, this is different. He's going after the pawn. Are we going to see?
Nihal's down to 8 seconds, but he's pre-moving like a madman.
Yeah, if he makes 50 moves, he can earn a draw. He's found the perfect repetition.
Well,
what?
MVL,
What was that?
What is he doing? Well, he could have kept playing him on. He could have made things hard. If Nihal had the other position, he would have looked for every single tricky move, and he would have started moving his king to chase away the bishop. There's no risk. There's no reason at all to push the pawn when you're up time and you
brought his bishop to defend that pawn. Then that would free his king to move around the board. The reason that Nihal was able to but MVL could have moved his king in order to prevent that and cause Nihal to think again and spend more time.
No, for sure. This shows, I mean, Nihal's experience in online chess. He's pulling points out of nowhere.
Yeah, incredible. Pulling points that you would never believe are possible. That was a draw out of nowhere. It looked lost earlier, and then it looked like it should have been a flag.
Yeah, I think we can be very critical of MVL. There's two stages of that endgame that we probably would have disagreed with. When he had the 2 pawns versus 1, he could final stage. There's absolutely no reason, if it's a draw by 50 moves, force your opponent to survive 50 moves.
Yeah.
Don't push the pawn to e7. There's absolutely no benefit at all.
Because he knows that his opponent, Nihal, is pre-moving to the e7 square.
Yes.
So that pawn push accomplishes nothing.
No, it's the only thing Nihal's pre-moving. And as you mentioned, okay, well, we're going straight to game 2. First game was a tie. Now Nihal Sarin will have the white pieces against MVL. Loser goes home.
And Eric, this is a decider match, right? The winner moves on in the Esports World Cup. I'm wondering whether that moment right there, MVL maybe choosing not to pursue that flag, is going to come back to bite him. Let's see. We talk about these, Grunfeld type of structures. This is, it's now transposed kind of to a London system a little bit, but against a Grunfeld setup that MVL is certainly known for.
Yeah, MVL's certainly known for it. It should be said this is the second match of the day. They've both played a match already, so this isn't necessarily home prep. They probably prepared a little bit for their first match. They knew who they were playing, but here, as you mentioned, this is just standard Grunfeld setup versus a London, which, by the way, means in this players both embrace sharp chess. We saw that in the last game. It went.
That's
It
right.
was good for white, then it was good for black, then it was good for white. At the end of the day, tied match. Here we go.
Yeah, and in this position, I look at the knight on a3, and one of the ways that that knight re-enters the game is usually on the b1 square. Knight to b1 and back to c3. That's a much better square for the knight. Hitting d5, hitting e4. You never allow the knight to take the bishop. So bishop h2, an absolutely necessary reaction. And now that the b2 pawn is hit, Eric, I'm looking at queen b3, queen c2. Both moves look fantastic. I really like Mihal's position early on, a bit unorthodox for MVL. He's got the pieces kind of jumbled up together.
Well, I think unorthodox is the right way to say it. I'll say one thing. Grunfeld players are uncomfortable with this position. Why? Look at our bishop on g7. There's a pawn on f6 blocking it. If I push that pawn f5, then white has d5 square. Why didn't he play queen b3? You suggest that as one of the candidate moves? Because black has problems to solve. Keep the pieces on the board.
Yep.
Now the queen's on the board. If MVL pushes further on the king side, at least if the queen's on the board, that'll be a better piece if you want to exploit those loose moves on the king side.
Now, I understand taking because it frees up the b5 square. That knight actually, in some cases, wants to retreat to c3. But I saw MVL a little bit here. My
What about queen
instinct
b3 here?
well, my instinct was bishop d3 earlier. Now, I don't think it's playable because the knight's on b5. So yes, queen b3 is necessary.
But this is this is just a bad position for black. You have no coordination. You have no stable squares besides the knight on e4. The knight on e6 is awkward because it blocks your e-pawn. The bishop g7, as I said, this is such a problem piece. Compare the bishops. The bishop on h2 has a full diagonal. The bishop on g7 has nothing. The bishop on g6, it's somewhat okay, but you have to weaken your king side to do so, and it's blocked by the knight
And
on e4.
it should be back on f7 because what do you do about the d pawn? Eric, a natural move like rook d8. I'm even looking at knight to c7. That could put in the d pawn.
I think rook d8 is going to be played. I'm just looking for that punishing move for Nihal because I think Nihal wants to keep the queens on the board unless he sees something good. You mentioned rook d8, there's knight c7. Is knight c7 good? Yes, but everything good is good. We have to compare and figure out what puts the most pressure on MVL.
Yeah, rook d8 played. He's planning to Let's see, bishop d6, always a risky move, right? You want to leave that bishop on the b4 square. There's just no
So
entry. You can't take it.
at any moment, do you think Nihal should try to bring the king over and play h5? When do you pursue that?
I mean, now's as good a time as any, but remember, there's also bishop e1 to consider. The good thing is you're not really threatening to take on h4 because knight b7 ideas.
He's baiting him again, Amon.
hmm
He wants the bishop to go to e1.
Of course he does, because remember, even if the bishop takes on h4, it's not guaranteed, right? That doesn't
But
really change the position.
is the bishop trapped? Because knight d3 was the move that contained the bishop. The
It's not
knight's
there
on
anymore.
c3 now. So how do you take away e1 as a square?
I think that bishop's coming
I
back.
think that's a blunder by Nihal. I don't see how that bishop gets trapped.
Well, you know, he is keeping the game alive, but he's also down time here. And you got to be very careful against MVL. He's actually bringing winning chances
Mon,
to
I
this
think
game.
Nihal has to turn into draw mode. He's trying to push for a win here. He finally has played b4. He'd like to get that king to b3. The knight on e2 defends f4 and d4. So is MVL going to swing the king over to defend b4? He can also argue, even if you attack b4, I'll eventually play bishop e1, and you can't actually win the b4 pawn by force without giving something up, because again, white's pawns are in dark squares. If white gets the king on b3, knight on d3, one of those pawns, d4, something could be hanging. It's very hard to coordinate, but MVL's spending so much time. He just had 15-second edge. It's down.
Well, I
and
think
again,
he's concerned, right? Knight c1, knight d3. How do you defend the b pawn? If you push the pawn, all of a sudden knight c5, he is picking up this pawn again. This is some kind of progress because now maybe it's a little bit different.
it is progress. Nihal
Knight
can...
h4. He's missed knight h4. The idea of
You
knight
can't
f3,
get in
knight
there.
h4.
You can't get in there. There's two squares, knight e5, knight h4. The king can't get in time. It's blocked out by knight e5 taking f7. And look
And
at
he's
that.
going to resign. Oh my goodness, just the idea of knight h4. We saw the game end a little bit early in the first game. We were critical of that. And now he's even resigned this one, 20-second deficit. He was about to lose the G-Pawn. Eric, Nihal Sarin, S8UL Esports. He's defeated MVL. He's eliminated him, and he's moved on in the Esports World Cup.
And we have to give him credit. He was pressing the whole game, and he's someone who maximizes his chances. He does not allow repetition. He keeps going, and he's through.
That's incredible. Nihal Sarin. It's unbelievable how he keeps doing it. And at this point, Eric, we start to talk about the Nihal magic. He feels like a survivor. You know, how does he do it in those time scrambles? And then now, you know, he comes back and he just beats MVL 1.5 to half. Are you looking back as MVL at that first game in any way, or doesn't have as much of an impact?
I'm 100% looking back at that first game. MVL had winning chances throughout the game. And in that end game, I think if Nihal had the reverse colors, he probably would have won as white. He would have maximized it.
Right.
But he's definitely not going to just push upon and allow a draw. I think MVL has to regret the first game looking at this result.
Yep, and it's just a reminder that this format is something that I think Nihal really understands. We saw him come out of the last chance qualifier, so he's worked really hard to earn his place here. But what he's done is he's been resourceful every single time. So he's always found a way. Low on time, he'll save a half a point. He might turn it into a full point. And in this position right here, when it looked like there was no progress to be made, he found a way, he liquidated, and every single time that he made a decision, the time was getting lower and lower. It was turning into a win condition on its own.
Yeah, when MVL felt like he was getting closer to a draw, he wins upon Nihal plays this b4 move, just changing the position entirely and posing new problems. And he just keeps finding a way to do that.
Yep. No, Nihal has been extremely impressive. What a pickup by S8UL Esports. I just think he's one of the players in the competition that is using the clock the best. Yes, he gets into time trouble. We've seen that. It's, you know, it's a point of criticism, but he's allowed to if he's able to do this time and time again, Eric.
Yeah, I think most players looking at the field, you do not want to have a time situation, time scramble with Nihal. He's so cool under pressure.
Yeah, he really is. We've known that about him for so long. It's nice to see him on this big stage and still doing it over and over again. I just think he's combining the chess with the esports time control the best. We're down with an interview. James Canty is with your winner, Nihal Sarin.
I'm here with Nihal Sarin. Congratulations. What happened in the match today?
Thank you. Well, I think this was a good match. I think the first game was quite, at least, I mean, for this time control, probably quite good quality from both of us. I was under some pressure, but I think I managed to defend pretty well, and also on the clock I was able to hang on. But Maxim is so fast. If you get so low on clock against him, I think you have no chance. So was just trying to somehow play fast and hope for the best. And yeah, second game I was very happy with the position I got from the opening. It's just very pleasant to play, and I managed to win a pawn soon. And of course, he defended very well, like he always does. And I was struggling to convert, and I started getting slight flashbacks of yesterday where I was struggling to convert pawn up. But although this was not smooth at all, I somehow, after this b4 92, somehow I almost accidentally trapped his bishop. So,
Yeah.
or he has to give the b pawn to clear b4, but then I finally get my pass pawn.
Right.
So yeah, then yeah, in the end, okay, after knight f3, I'm even getting g6 by force. So.
Right. What do you think worked well for you in the 2 matches you won today?
Okay, against Anish, I was extremely lucky in the second game. But yeah, otherwise, I think I just managed to just keep making moves and yeah, just try to be calm. And fortunately, it paid off. Yeah.
That's amazing. Stay calm and keep making moves here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Back to you at the desk.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you very much, Nihal. Huge congratulations to Nihal Sarin of SAUL Esports, who won both of his matches today to make it into the quarterfinals. What do you make of this, Benjamin?
Yeah, incredible day for Nihal. I mean, he was looking down the barrel of elimination, but he managed to defeat Anish. It looked like that match was going to Armageddon as Anish was completely winning. And now he defeats MVL. I mean, really impressive stuff by Nihal. In the first game, he was significantly worse, close to losing at some point. He managed to save a draw there. And in the second game, which seemed like it was headed towards a draw, he kept playing the position, kept pressure on the clock, and eventually found a way to win.
Indeed. Do you think that MVL should have gone harder for the win in that first game?
I think so. I don't quite understand why he just gave up that final pawn and allowed Nihal to draw. I think Nihal probably would have saved the draw there, but he was down to 6 seconds. MVL could have, tried to flag him. It was not a 100% draw.
For sure. I believe in these 10-minute games, right, with no increment on the clock, you really have to take every opportunity that you can possibly get. It really feels like from the 2 games that we saw Nihal play today, he made full advantage of those 10 minutes as well as the game. Whereas his opponents, he himself said he perhaps got a little bit luckier against Anish. But even in that second game, why did MVL trade the rooks?
Yeah, good question. It seemed like that rook trade led to a winning endgame for Nihal, even though it was very difficult to finish off. Nihal also was struggling, like he said, he was having flashbacks to yesterday, but eventually he did find a way.
He did indeed find a way to win, and we will be taking a look at where he goes from here. He has made it into the quarterfinals.
Let's take a look at the brackets. We are back here. Wow. And in the brackets here, Group B. Nemo, take us through the brackets here.
Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who beat Anish Giri yesterday 1.5, 0.5, unfortunately did also lose to Arjun Erigesi 1-2. Arjun progressing through the Armageddon. And now he has unfortunately lost against Nihal Sarin, who is going to be going into the playoffs.
Yeah, very impressed by Nihal. I would think, looking at this group, Nihal perhaps the underdog, but he managed to find a way. I mean, first beating Anish, then MVL, very impressive. And he's in the quarterfinals of the Esports World Cup. He really shows that he belongs here.
MVL still taking home $50,000. So, his run at this Esports World Cup is unfortunately over. Team Vitality will not be getting a chance at that 1,000 points as they are currently leading in the Esports Club Championship rankings.
It's amazing here to see Nihal and Arjun here. I mean, the Indians are some of the strongest players in chess, as we see, even the world champion right now being Gukesh from India as well. India is in powerhouse, and you see that in the playoffs so far. So Group A here, as Group A made it through with Yasipenko facing Levan Aronian, and Levan was able to win and advance to the playoffs there. And in the elimination match, looks like Jan Nepomniachtchi was able to beat Artemiev down there at the bottom there for now a decider match. Yasipenko and Jan Nepomniachtchi, which is still going on right now. Looks like that's going to Armageddon. How do you feel about that one, Bob?
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting one. Yasipenko against Nepomniachtchi really looks like a coin flip. Anyone can win. Goes to Armageddon. So I'm excited to see who makes it through to the quarterfinals.
Quarterfinals are going to be absolutely stacked. It will be super exciting. I mean, are you going to be looking forward to any specific matchups?
Absolutely. I mean, this one, the Armageddon between Yasipenko and Nepomniachtchi, I think will be an exciting one. I'm also really curious what's going on in the other groups. Like, we have exciting matches all around.
For sure.
Absolutely. We have a lot to watch, guys. A lot to watch. But of course, we have a graphic for you guys by Sony. Let's take a look at what that is. There it is, the man himself. Daily MVP beating MVL. Look at that. Wow, Nihal Sarin is absolutely a force to be reckoned with. And in fact, as we've seen when the show started, the content piece we have from him said himself that he is actually an underdog. What do you think about that, Bach? He said he was an underdog, and it feels like he may not be such an underdog anymore.
I really thought he was an underdog going into today. I thought he was the underdog against Anish. He managed to win that one. Really impressive. And beating MVL, I did not expect that. I mean, MVL had a big advantage in game number 1. Also in game number 2, it seemed like it was headed towards a draw. But like we said before, Nihal, it seems like he gets an extra half a point from every game. When he's losing, he makes a draw. And when it's a draw, he gets a win. So yeah, he's got that skill.
Wow, that is a skill. How many more?
He's really been converting his games. Sometimes not necessarily converting. He doesn't have the advantage to start with, but he squeezes out that win, which is really impressive. But we also have to mention part of the reason why he is an MVP right now here at the Esports World Cup is also because he qualified through the last chance qualifiers. He had a much longer journey, perhaps, than MVL. Well, at least here in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, he's had an amazing run here in Riyadh. When he came here, he didn't have anything yet. I mean, he made it through the last chance qualifier to the main event. Now beating Anish and MVL to make it through the quarters is huge.
It is absolutely huge here, guys, but we have to cut the day short. What are we going to do? There's no more chess today. I guess I'm going to go in the other studio and go watch them play chess, but you guys can still be watching at home here. We still have more chess coming for the other days here, but that's it from us here at Studio B here at Esports World Cup, guys. We'll see you same time tomorrow.